Well, we've all got to learn somewhere, but when it comes to sales copywriting, there's some people teaching some things out there that leave me just shaking my head. No. I asked on Instagram for you to give me some of the advice, we'll call it, that you've been given, and boy, did you deliver. When it comes to digital marketing for your creative small business, it becomes so easy to get swept up in the info overload and then start wondering, why aren't these strategies working for you? I know I've definitely been there. But this may be one of those it's not you, it's me situations, and it may just be the fault of the bad advice. So let's dig into a countdown of the top 9 worst pieces of copywriting advice I've ever heard. And if we've not yet met, hey there, my name is Ashlyn Carter. I'm a conversion copywriter and brand and launch strategist for creative entrepreneurs like you. I'm all about helping you figure out how to make more money with your words so you can work from a place of more rest, less hustle. Click like if that sounds like the kind of lifestyle you're about and you're curious, what is this bad advice that you maybe back-pocketed? We're gonna get the countdown rolling here with number 9. Don't use to be verbs. Okay, this is coming in at number 9 because it is kind of good advice, but it's masked as bad advice. You're gonna have to break this rule to write persuasive copy. And a quick refresher, when we say to be verbs, these are the verbs that tell us about a state or a being of existence. They don't necessarily give any extra meaning, but they're used to describe the subject. I bet if I say this, you'll remember what they were because you probably had to memorize these in grade school as am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. If you learned a new language, this is that first set of verbs you learn to conjugate. I am a copywriter. I am a small business owner. That candle is burning. And yes, you'll absolutely have to use these, especially when you're making that big persuasive point. Copywriting for Creatives is the first and only program of its kind to help you master your message, write your site, and launch it to sell in 30, 60, or 90 days. The program is that. But your copy is going to get a heck of a lot more lift if you use some action verbs along the way, and an action verb is essentially a verb that you can see. These are verbs that have muscle tone. Not only can you sub out your am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been type verbs with that, like the candle glows, the candle cracks and pops. But you can up-level verbs that are kind of so-so and swap them out. So instead of throw away, you can say ditch. Instead of put, you can say etch. Instead of go, try something with a little more oomph, like zip or trod. Don't say get, say harness. Start pocketing action words like these. We have begun in our weekly Tuesday email. I've dropped a few action verbs that I'm liking lately or trying to work into my copy. Sign up for those emails if you don't already get them. I'll give you one more tip here. An easy way to implement this is to not worry about it at first. Like writer Ann Handley says, that first draft is show up, throw up situation. Get it out, get it on paper, and then when you're going back through, see if you can then make those swap outs then. That's what I do. I talked more about that in a recent video, but let's go ahead and get the countdown to number 8. Start writing at the top of the page or start with a really great headline. Personally, I like to avoid blinking cursor paralysis at all costs. I have to hack my workflow to avoid that, and headlines or the top of the page, that's the hardest for me. Instead, the first thing I do when I sit down to write a piece of copy, whether it is an inquiry response or a sales page, a services page, a homepage, or an email campaign, the first thing I do is write down the one goal. What is the one action step I want the reader of this email or whatever, what is the one thing I want them to do? After I've established that, I then go to the middle and I write out kind of the meat and potatoes of that asking process or telling them what I want them to do. On a sales page, this would be, for example, going straight to the solution, the offer, and writing out the offer and everything that's in it. On your services page, this could be the service and everything I get when this service is rendered to me. The details of your photo session and everything I get. Maybe it's all the specs of the product that you're trying to sell. Then after I get all of that down and actually understand what I'm selling, like I have it on paper there in front of me, then I go back up to the top and craft that portion of the sales argument. Try that next time you have a piece of copy that you're stuck on. Try to just go for the jugular and write the thing you want them to do or write about whatever it is that you're trying to sell and then go up to the top. I wrote about my process for this in a video I did on how I write Facebook ad copy, so that may be helpful as well to tee up. Myth number 7, your copy needs to sound like you. This is a myth that we need to listen to with a little discernment. A lot of my audience gets so hung up on, but what is my brand voice? What's my brand story? And that matters. Don't get me wrong, it matters. I have a brand voice vibe quiz and I have an entire download that helps you find your brand voice, but it's only half the equation. What you need to do instead, you've got to have language all through your copy that your customer or your client can see themselves in. It's this pop bottles Venn diagram equation that I talk about and I teach all the time inside Copywriting for Creatives. And if you need to change course because you realize, I think I do this, and you've used this bad advice before and maybe gone way overboard with making it sound like you, don't worry, look down below. I did a video on how to get started with what I call client and customer voice hacking, which is an integral part of your entire copywriting process. All right, myth number 6, and I'm gonna start to get a little spicier as I get further down this list. No one reads emails. Well, these are the same people that are telling you that ads don't work anymore. As my friend and ads expert Adrian said, media buying on Meta and other big companies is a billion-dollar industry. It's not just gonna disappear or stop working overnight. It's working for somebody. People definitely still read emails. In fact, checking email is what about 58% of us do first thing in the morning, according to Opt-in Monster. And it's not even a generational thing like, well, Gen Z won't read copy in a few years or as they grow up. It's not even that. And listen, I love short form video content. I send an asinine number of TikTok videos to my husband daily. So let it be said, video script copy and short form video copy is very important. Gen X accounts for about 92% of all email usage, but 89% of us millennials use email on a regular basis, and a whopping 85% of Gen Z uses email service. What that data tells us is there's no big major fluctuations, and users from all age groups use email relatively equally. TLDR, go look at the data. Yes, email is a 40-year-old marketing medium, but is probably my very favorite to work in. It's forgiving, you can make it fun. If you liked this myth, stay tuned for number 1. I think you'll like it. We're coming in close because here at myth number 5, we have that I don't really need a guarantee because I offer a service myth. For whoever needs to hear it, a guarantee doesn't always without fail mean like it or your money back. No, a guarantee is a promise that you're making to your client or your customer. It's a brand promise. It's some way that you're communicating to them, hey, I've got you, I want the best for you, and I've got your back here. Now, within reason, you do need to have an airtight contract in place as a service provider or a freelancer, but you do need to be willing to make some kind of promise and put some skin in the game with your buyer. Whether you're gonna have a happiness guarantee and work with them until they're happy, you may even already have something in your business where you offer 1 or 2 or 3 rounds of edits and redos until they're happy with the product. Myth number 4, you can't write your own copy and execute your own craft. You need to pick one and then outsource what you're not good at. Nope, and I'm so glad that Hannah submitted this one. Take it from someone that gets to fix a lot of copy. I have owned a copywriting business for over 6.5 years at this point, and we've fixed a lot of copy that someone persuaded you to invest in because you needed to outsource it or you were too busy. And here's what I always say. The best metaphor I have for this is Shark Tank. You watch the show, the entrepreneur goes in front of the sharks and has to know 2 things. They've got to know their sales pitch, right? That's the first thing out of their mouth, and they need to know their numbers. And no amount of wallowing about how you're not good at words or you're not good at numbers matters at that point. You're the CEO, you're the one at the top, you've got to know this stuff. And I don't mean to brag, but I spent a lot of time in math coach class growing up, and I still have to know my numbers as a creative entrepreneur. I've talked a lot about how I've learned my finances as a small business owner. I actually love it now, but you may feel like that with your words or your verbiage or whatever you call it. You may just not feel really comfortable when it comes to selling persuasively, but you need to. Good copy done the right way, done well, is expensive as it should be because there's so much time and research that goes into it. So here's my vote. Get your concept idea off the ground. Get the proof in the pudding, the proof of the product or the offer, and start to learn enough to be dangerous when it comes to persuasive sales and sales copywriting. Because good copy cannot sell something that no one wants in the first place. It can't fix it. And even understanding the basics of sales copy is something you're completely capable of doing. Stick with me, I'll take you places. I have taught thousands of people how to do this. But you can't ostrich your head in the ground because you're not good at it. Outsourced fairy dust doesn't fix everything. Myth number 3, clients don't want to know anything about you or your about page isn't about you. Now this myth is all sorts of which ways and cattywampus because I've also heard the complete inverse of it. You'll also hear, but people buy from people. You are the brand. You have to lead with yourself and your personality. So what is it already? Here's the thing, people do want to know about you, but they're looking at it through a lens of themselves. They're always looking at it from their perspective. Like it or not, we do kind of approach buying with a me first opinion in mind. When's the last time you went out and spent 3 or 4 figures on a product or a service and you thought, I hope they're able to use that money really well? You're probably more thinking about what you're going to get out of this product, the result you're going to get to happen, or how it's finally going to help you feel XYZ. Like back in myth number 7, this one is more of a marriage. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you a few more of Copywriting for Creative students doing this in action so you can see. Sarah's work is still in progress. She is a flute teacher, and I love that, first of all, but she's just done a great job. I want you to see she's working on right now, and it's, like I said, still in progress. But here's her headline, and see how that much more speaks to the prospect, to the customer, than about Sarah or anything like that. I hate pages that start like that. And then she, again, like reassures them that they're in the right place. And then she introduces herself, and she's going to talk all about the incredible work she's done. Okay, I lied. Calder is actually, she was a client with our agency, so not a CFC student, but this is her website. There's no reason for me to be on the homepage except I wanted you to see how beautiful that is. It gives diptyque vibes, and I'm here for it. But the about page is what I wanted to show you specifically in the messaging we did on this website, because again, we're starting out thinking about the potential client first. Now, this is the client, this is a luxury item, right? Like high-end wedding planning. So how can we then not, we definitely don't want to come in all about Calder, like in her team. We need to talk up the reason that the client would part with so much money for something that is a once in a lifetime experience. So you can see there's about this much copy, and then we get to the place where we've earned the opportunity to actually talk about Calder and her team. So there you have it. There's another example for you. Our friends at Tonic Site Shop, Jen and Jeff, always say, quit telling people that you love coffee. And that's kind of it. I want you to write an about page or a bio or whatever piece of copy it is in your business instead of making it all about you and your coffee order. Myth number 2, copywriting and content writing are the same thing, right? Yep, I did a whole video on this one. Now, they are cousins for sure, but copywriting is much closer to the point of sale than content writing is traditionally. Now, I've made mistakes because of this myth. In a past video, I talked about how I built my copywriting business. And like most people, when you start your business, I was ready to do all things for all people, anybody who would pay me. But over time, I found the whole riches that are in the niches thing. That is true. And instead of writing blogs and social media plans and sales pages and emails, I learned to pick a lane. The difference boils down to they're at different places in the sales funnel, which is a fancy way to say the customer journey or the client journey, which is a fancy way of saying their path to coming to trust you enough to pay you. One, typically it serves more of a purpose at the top of the funnel, the tofu, and one more at the bottom of the funnel, the bofu. And myth number 1 that I'm about to bust, people don't read long copy, Ashlyn, or your copy needs to be X length. Listen, if I had a quarter for every time I'd been told this, I would not be sitting here. I would absolutely be touring castles in Europe. We've even heard this with content marketing before. Google only likes articles that are so-and-so amount of words long. No, Google's going to get the best possible solution, like the article that gives the best purpose fastest to the people. It's the same with copy. People do still read long form copy, but I'll tell you what they don't read. They don't read boring copy. They don't read long sentences. Long copy, long form copy doesn't equate long sentences, okay? They don't read unskimmable copy. You have to make your copy work more like books of a chapter and help people understand and skim and still get the sales argument that you're making by reading the crossheads that you have along the way. Here's the big secret with this. You typically will write like you like to be sold to. Most of us do. If you like to be told the emotional side of things to make a decision, then that's how you're going to traditionally want to sell as well. If you're like me and you like the facts, that's going to be how you naturally like to sell. But there's other people out there who have different things that they're looking for when they're buying. This is what I talk about in my quiz. You can go to ashlynwrites.com/quiz. I did 4 because there's 4 different buying and selling types that you're likely one of. So when you write long form copy and you use some sort of a framework, and a framework just means your sales argument, that you're coming in with your different levers to pull in the sales argument, long copy gives you more of a chance to do that. But again, it has to be skimmable. These are not long sentences. I got to be able to flip through it and find what I'm looking for. And it can't be boring. Bad advice will always be prevalent. And if you know me, you've probably heard me say best practices can just be pooled ignorance. So how do you determine if the advice that you've been given is bad? Always comes down to the conversion metrics for me. The data does not lie. The data doesn't care about your feelings, which is a good thing sometimes. When you're testing things in your marketing and your copy, be sure though to test and tweak one variable at a time. You don't want to go in there like a bull in a china cabinet or a mad scientist, going bananas and flipping everything and turning all sorts of different things topsy-turvy. That's why I love copy, and the beautiful thing about it is you can test and tweak and learn as you go, which is basically what creative entrepreneurship is anyway. Well, if you liked this video, let me know by clicking that like button. Comment down below, what's a myth that I missed? I'd love to hear it. And let me know, did anybody else hear that Gwyneth Paltrow may be joining them on Shark Tank for a season? I might watch a couple of episodes of that. If you want to learn more about creating high converting copy, click the next video on your screen right now. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.